Okay, so next we're going to talk about Pluto, which I think, unfortunately, I know it's been downgraded to a dwarf planet, but it's still a planet in the birth chart, and it's very important. And it's really thought of as the planet of transformation and rebirth. And again, this is another generational planet. It takes 240 years to make a full circuit. So people don't have planetary Pluto returns. Countries may, but people don't actually have Pluto returns. Pluto wants us to transcend that which we know, redeem ourselves in the process, and come out stronger as a result. This planet is about transformation, regeneration, and rebirth. The house and sign placement of Pluto in your birth chart is about transformation and destroying anything that does not serve a higher purpose for soul growth. And I think it's interesting now, and again, we'll probably do a separate video on America's Pluto return, but since it takes 248 years, people don't have a Pluto return, but countries do. So interestingly enough, America is actually going through its Pluto return because I think this country is like 247 years now, 247 years old now. And again, I think we can all feel that there is this kind of transformation happening within the country. So I think that feeling of kind of things need to change, and it's not necessarily going to be a pleasant experience. And a lot of times when people have Pluto transits, it's not a pleasant experience. But so I think this is really one of the more important planets to talk about. But again, in kind of pop astrology and cookbook astrology, I think there's this idea that Pluto is no longer relevant because it's been downgraded to a dwarf planet. So I'm hoping you can really kind of dig into that more.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's a handful. So there's something like 19,000 plus identified bodies in our solar system, carrying various names, including dwarf planets, asteroids, centaurs, trans-Neptunian objects, and there might be a couple other classifications. As far as I know, there's only a handful of dwarf planets, which would include Ceres as well. And maybe a few others. So Pluto, for whatever reason, in astrology is as important as any other planet. And you can clearly see that when it's in transit or when it is making a significant aspect in somebody's birth chart, somebody's sun, moon, or ascendant. That energy is very potent. And one of the things I speculate about energetically with Pluto is it's actually a binary system. So it has a sister dwarf planet, Charon, and Charon orbits. They don't orbit around. One doesn't orbit around the other. Like a moon orbiting around a planet. They orbit around a central point in space. So it's almost like those two planets spinning around. It's creating some sort of more potent energy than the other dwarf planets. Another thing about Pluto is all the planets up that we've described up to this point are on a disk that's roughly, if you imagine the sun in the middle, all the planets are roughly within a fairly short range, like a dinner plate. And Pluto's orbit comes in like this, and it's a very eccentric orbit. So all the other planets also have a pretty circular orbit, to where Pluto's orbit is very elliptical. So it takes roughly 12 to 13 years to move through half of the signs in the zodiac, where then Taurus would be the furthest point. It takes 30 years to move through Taurus, and 20 something years to move through Aries and Gemini. So it's certainly an enigma. And so Pluto rules the sign of Scorpio. Everything I said about Scorpio in the 8th house would apply to Pluto. It would then be in detriment in Taurus, and it does not have signs of exaltation or fall yet agreed upon, because nobody's really been alive long enough to observe its effects. We can only kind of look into the past and read what's available in history literature, which I would agree is not enough. to establish where it's exalted or not. So I agree with everything you said, Sarah, about Pluto. What I would add to that is Pluto will also has a large theme about power as well as the dark side. So the house that Pluto shows up in your birth chart very often will indicate where there was some sort of a trauma, some sort of a deep wound, where a person has been subjected to some form of evil, or abuse. People who have Pluto, particularly like aspecting the sun, very often I've found are very ambitious. They value power and authority. And I don't really understand why that is. That's just something that I've noticed. Pluto carries this energy of intensifying whatever it is that it interacts with. So part of the nature of this energy is like Sarah, you talked about it, it will destroy that which no longer serves us. It will also destroy that which it finds to be untrue. So there's this like this need for the truth. So people who have prominent Pluto, they typically don't like small talk, and they don't like it when people are not being authentic. They want somebody to like that person when they ask you how you're doing. Certainly in America, that doesn't mean tell me how you're actually doing. That means just say you're good. It's like saying hi. Somebody with prominent Pluto, when they ask you that, they may actually want to know. And if you're not okay, there's a good chance that they want to know. And they're totally comfortable being with you, regardless of how you're feeling. So it has this destructive nature because there's just something about it which it seeks to destroy so that a person can be reborn. And it really it values evolution, and perhaps part of the reason that it values that is it values truth and authenticity. And so part of that process of destroying is because people are very rarely authentic. People are very rarely living in a way that's true to themselves. They're living in a way that their society and their parents and whatever, or, they're scared that they, something bad's going to happen and won't make enough money, whatever it may be. And so instead of just being true to themselves, they make a bunch of compromises and do what they have to do to fit in. And so the energy of Pluto is adverse to that. And it will create chaos and disruption. And typically when Pluto transit is happening, the other piece to Pluto and truth is it wants all to be revealed. So most people can't tell you why they do what they do. They can't tell you why they feel what they feel. This stuff arises from the depths of their unconscious. And it's the unconscious being defined as that they're unaware of what it is that's causing that. So Pluto causes that material to come to the surface. And when unconscious material is unearthed and circumstances arise that promote a person or give a person an opportunity to become aware of that, that is usually not a very pleasant experience. And a person will avoid it at all costs. So very often when a Pluto transit is happening, it will bring about some sort of very dark experience in a person's life. Like I could tell you when Pluto transited my sun, that was kind of when my life took a very, like a turn towards the dark side. And that energy ran for, 4 or 5 years until I kind of started on this new path. And it was by the grace of a higher power where things changed. And I kind of healed and let go of those old ways and kind of took a more positive path. So that is definitely kind of part of this, like description of Pluto is, that we all have darkness within us, and we tend to act like we don't, and we tend to pretend that other people don't. The reality is we all have it. It's in the collective. It's in our past, whether that be from our ancestors or past lives, or the collective, wherever else. And so people with Pluto prominent, or when you're receiving a Pluto transit, that it's difficult to hide that.